Have you ever wondered how your favorite websites are actually built from the ground up? Well, you're in exactly the right place. In the next few minutes, we're going to pull back the curtain on the core language of the entire web, HTML. We'll cover all the essentials, and by the end, you will have built your very first web page from scratch. Seriously, no experience needed. Let's jump right in.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about what HTML actually is and why it's so important. Then we'll get hands-on with the real building blocks, things called tags and attributes. The main goal here, to get you to build your first real web page. And then we'll talk about what could be next on your coding adventure.
Okay, let's kick things off with the most fundamental question there is. What in the world is this language that basically powers the entire internet? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. I know, that sounds super technical, but don't let the name scare you. A markup language just means it uses these little markers called tags to describe the content on a page. It's the universal language that browsers like Chrome or Safari read to understand what to show you. Bottom line, it's the blueprint for almost every single website you've ever visited. And to really make that idea stick, we're going to use one simple analogy that will make everything else just click into place. Think of HTML as the skeleton of a web page. Right, just like your own skeleton gives your body its shape and structure, HTML does the exact same thing for a web page. It tells the browser, hey, this is a big headline, or this part right here is a paragraph, and I want an image to go right over here. It doesn't care about colors or fonts or any of that fancy stuff. That all comes later. Its one and only job is to provide that raw, essential structure. Okay, so if HTML is just the bare-bones skeleton, what gives a website its style, its look and feel, and what makes it do things when you click on it? Well, that's where two other major players enter the scene. Pretty much every modern website is built with this team of three core technologies. First up, you have HTML for the structure. That's our skeleton. Next, you've got CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Think of this as the design and styling. It's the skin, the clothes, the colors, the fonts. And finally, you have JavaScript, which adds all the interactivity and action. It's like the muscles that make things happen when you click a button. For today, though, we're focusing 100% on HTML because it's the foundation everything else is built on. All right, now it's time to meet the real workhorses of HTML, the tags. These are the essential building blocks you're going to use to create any kind of content you can imagine on a web page. Every single HTML file is built on this standard foundation. At the very top, you'll see doctype HTML. That just tells the browser it's a modern web page. Then the HTML tag wraps around everything else. Inside that, you have two main parts. First, the head, which has all the behind-the-scenes info, like the title you see in the browser tab. And second, the body. This is the important part. It's where all of your visible content like text, images, and links is going to live. Now, to create titles and subtitles, you use heading tags. They go from H1 for your most important main title, all the way down to H6 for tiny subheadings. Here's a pro tip. You should really only use one H1 per page. Why? Because it tells search engines like Google what your page is really all about, which is super important for getting found online.
For any chunk of normal text, you'll just wrap it in a paragraph tag. It's really as simple as P to start the paragraph, and then a closing P to end it. The browser takes care of all the spacing for you, giving you a nice, clean block of text. Need to make a few words pop? You can use some really simple formatting tags. Just wrap your text in B tags to make it bold, I tags for italics, or U to get an underline. These are perfect for making key terms really stand out. Lists are absolutely everywhere on the web. An unordered list, or UL, gives you a classic bulleted list. But if you need a numbered sequence, like for steps in a recipe, you'd go for an ordered list, or OL. For both types, each individual item in the list gets wrapped in an LI tag. And now, for two of the most powerful tags out there, images for putting images on your page, and A for creating clickable links. But you might notice they look a little different. They need some extra information to work properly, like which image should I show, or where should this link actually go? And that leads us perfectly into our next big concept. So, how do we give tags like image tag and A tag those extra specific instructions they need? The answer is by using attributes. An attribute is basically just a little piece of extra information you give to an HTML tag to tell it exactly how to behave. The most important thing to remember here is that they always go inside the opening tag, never the closing one.
They usually come in these name-value pairs, like name equals value. Let's look at the most common ones. For an image, the src attribute tells the browser the source, the file name of the picture. For a link, href is its destination URL. And then there's the alt attribute. This provides alternative text to describe what the image is. And this isn't just optional, it is absolutely vital for making the web accessible to everyone, especially people who use screen readers. Okay, theory is great, but let's be honest, practice is where the real fun begins. We've learned about the basic structure, we've met the most important tags, and we know about attributes. Now, let's put it all together and build an actual web page. We'll start with that basic HTML structure we talked about. Then, right inside the body tag, we'll drop in an H1 for our main title, a P tag for a little description, and then an image tag with both its source and alt attributes filled in. We'll finish it off with an A tag to make a link and, why not, a simple button. And just like that, we have a complete working web page. All you have to do now is type that code into any plain text editor. Save the file as index.html, then find that file on your computer and double-click to open it in your web browser. And congratulations, you are officially a web developer. You just created your very first web page from scratch. That is an amazing first step. But before we wrap things up, let's talk about a few good habits you should get into right away and what your next steps on this whole coding journey could look like. Trust me, these are pro tips that will save you a ton of headaches later on. Always indent your code to show how things are nested. It makes it so much easier to read. Keep your file names simple and all lowercase. Like we said, always use meaningful alt text. And make sure every tag you open, you also properly close. Clean code is happy code. So let's do a quick recap. In just the last few minutes, you've learned what HTML is, the skeleton of the web. You understand the standard file structure, you've gotten to know the most common tags, you learn how to power them up with attributes, and you've even built your own web page. That is a massive accomplishment. You now have the foundational skill for all of web development. So the big question is, what are you going to build with it? Are you going to move on to CSS to start styling your pages and making them look amazing? Or maybe you'll jump into JavaScript to add some cool interactivity. Your coding journey has officially begun, and the path forward is all yours to choose.